Done, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you all are doing well. You've got a series of mock tests, but bringing you back to current affairs. Today, we are going to take a topic which has just happened on the 15th of August. We are going to analyze the speech of the Prime Minister, which sets the tone for the coming 25 years. So, the Prime Minister from the ramparts of the Red Fort made a speech on the 15th of August 2022 saying that India has entered what is called the Amrut Kal or the Amrit Kal, as we say. It is an auspicious period for the next 25 years from 2022 to 47. That is the next 25 years are very crucial and important for India. And this Amrit Kal will culminate in the 100 years of independence of the country. Now, as per the previous speeches which have been made by the leader of this country, there have been no big schemes which have been involved. But according to Sri Shankar, who is now our foreign minister, and he tweeted these details, he says that the prime minister has made a statement regarding the future of the country. So the kind of India that the leader sees in future is an India which is a developed country. And when we say a developed country, we have to emphasize on the word developed. So the vision for India at the rate 100, which means when it completes the 100 years of independence, will be an India that is developed, and India, which is free of colonial mindset. Now, what has been the colonial mindset? That whatever the masters say, we have to follow, we don't question. But the Prime Minister is asking us to become intellectually free. He goes on to say that an India which is proud of its heritage, so Har Ghar Tiranga, which has come forward, and Aatmnirbhar Bharat, also another slogan which the Prime Minister has given, and India which is united and integrated. And when we look at the kind of bifurcations which are taking place in the north of the country, in the high Himalayas, and also in parts of the northeast, we realize how important it is for us to be united and integrated, and India whose citizens put duty first. So calls for the article which came into the constitution or were added to the constitution after the 42nd amendment in 1976, and calls for the duties of the citizens, and therefore the concept of citizen charter also becomes important. The reason why I'm taking this topic for you today is not because we need to analyze the speech of the Prime Minister per se, but it marks a direction on the path of which the civil services is going to take in terms of the questions which are going to come for the students. So far, by the time next year, I assume that a major part of paper two and also parts of paper three will have a lot to say about social issues, because in his speech, the Prime Minister has indicated time and again social issues of relevance, like he talks about Aatmnirbharta, he talks about on the patterns of Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, and then Jai Vigyan of Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He says Jai Abhiyan. Now, Jai Abhiyan means kind of innovations which he's talking of. So he's setting the pattern for what all India needs to achieve, not in terms of a particular policy, but in terms of mindset, the way the economy has to move. So the first question which becomes important is, what do you understand by a developed country? Now, if you look at the definitions in economics, there'll be theories concerning it. A major part of your second paper, he talks about Nari Shakti, again, social empowerment of women. He talks about renewables, a major part of your third paper. Then he talks about major changes in innovations, which is again a very important part of your third paper. He talks about developments and new innovations in the defense sector, goes on how to make a balance of payment which is favorable for our country. So I will be taking you through this entire trajectory little by little. We'll be covering the speeches. I will tell you exactly from where I have picked up this entire piece. So I have consulted about 10 articles, most of which are between the 16th to the 18th of August in Business Standard, Two articles are from Indian Express and one article is from the Mint. I think the Mint article was just 4 days back. You can go and check out on all these articles, but it's important that you summarize and put it together for yourself as to how the country is going to move forward. So we will go by the first definition, and these can be quoted, unquoted, as has been given by the foreign minister in his tweet on the 16th of August, where he says that the Prime Minister visualizes India on these 5 parameters in times to come for the next 25 years. So the first concept that we are going to attack is that India that is developed. Now, what you understand by a developed country? First and foremost is the per capita income. So the World Bank says that, if you look at an average, the per capita income of the countries of the world is around $12,000. World Bank further goes on to state that any country at an average can be considered to be developed if it has an average per capita income of, say, $25,000. Now, if we look at the countries of the world, the United States stands at some $70,000. Come down to Japan, stands at $40,000. England or the UK stands at $50,000. South Korea, another progressing and upcoming country, stands at some $35,000 per capita income of each citizen. Look at Singapore, it's a little more than 70,000. So if you look at terms of dollars, where does India stand? So India's per capita income in terms of dollars, as defined by the World Bank, and because there are going to be various definitions of per capita income, this is the first one which I'm going to attack for you. So here I say that India has a per capita income of $2,200, and this is for the year 2021. In 2009, we were $1,100. So what does it mean? We've taken 9 years to double our per capita income. According to this, in 2047, we are going to be standing at $8,800. So I will just go by the concept of development. And I'm quoting the World Bank for you according to the World Bank. And this is a rough estimate. The World Bank says that average per capita for the world is $12,000. All right. A developed country is one which has $25,000 and above. Then it goes on to say that USA has some $70,000. Singapore is a little above this. So it's above $70,000. All right. Goes on to say that Japan, an Asian country, stands at some $40,000. And then UK stands at some $50,000. And South Korea at $35,000. According to this parameter of the World Bank, India at present, which is in 2021, stands at $2,200. And we were in 2009, $1,100, which means that we've taken about these number of years to reach this. And according to this criteria, in 2047, we are likely to be at $8,800. This is one assessment of the World Bank. Now, if you look at the economy and the economic model which India adopted, so we went in for a mixed economy. We took the pattern of the earlier USSR, or what is erstwhile Russia, and twerked it and made it suit ourselves. So there were parts which were capitalistic, but mostly it was a communist model of Russia that we adopted. According to that framework, we have landed ourselves into what is called a low middle income country. So that is what India is at present. In 2022, we are a low middle income country. Now, this is one assessment of the World Bank. We go into a second assessment of the World Bank, which is based on the GDP or the gross domestic product. The GDP assessment is on what is called the PPP or the purchasing power parity, the purchasing or the capacity of a citizen to be able to buy. So on purchasing power parity, India is being compared by the World Bank to what is called the OECD countries, which is the most developed countries of the world, the OECD countries. All right. Now, according to this purchasing power parity, the income of based on the GDP, the per capita income of the Indians comes to what is called, and this is in international dollars. All right. These figures are in international dollars. The earlier one was dollar. This is international dollars. All right. So in terms of international dollars, India's per capita income stands at $7,700 per capita income of an Indian. And this is less than half of what is of China at the present rate, which is in 2021. The figures are being taken for 2021. So in 2021, based the per capita income of the Indian citizen based on purchasing power parity stands at 7,700, and this is less than half of what it is for China in present times. Worse, it is 1/7 of OECD countries. So the our per capita income at present is 7,700, and it is 1/7 of what it is for the OECD countries. So the GDP or the per capita income for the OECD countries, the per capita income of OECD countries stands at international dollars 48,482. So you can imagine where India is at present, and the dream of making an India a developed country requires a Herculean task. Now, according to this World Bank study, India needs to grow at the rate of 12.8% to reach where the OECD countries are. All right. And this has to happen consistently for the next 25 years. I repeat, for India to reach at power, and all OECD countries are developed nations. So if we have to reach the level of OECD countries, in 2047, India needs to grow at the rate of 12.8%. Suppose India does not grow at the rate of 12.8%, and grows at the rate of 8.4%, then India in 2047 will have a per capita income of the OECD countries at present, which is 48,482 international dollars. So we have to consistently maintain a growth rate of 12.8% to be at par with the OECD countries. If not, we want a per capita of 48,482, then we need to grow at the rate of 8.4%. This is when we have grown as compared to the OECD countries. In the past years, we have grown in double digits as compared to the OECD countries because they're already developed. How much more scope do they have for growth? And unfortunately for us, a little before COVID set in, that is from 2018, we have had very slow growth rates for our GDP. In fact, the double digits have come down to a single digit, and therefore there is a crisis in the country. But if we want to formulate and understand, then this is what we need to grow at in order to reach where the OECD countries are at present. Now, this is one parameter of, this is just one parameter of what is called the uh, parameter of development. Now, let us go into the second parameter for development. According to the economist, the second parameter for development is the infant mortality rate. Now, for the infant mortality rate, it means how many deaths take place per 1,000 live births. So, how many deaths take place per 1,000 live births? If we look in 1996, our infant mortality rate was 76 per 1,000. Okay. In 2021, we have reached, in 2020, we have reached 27 per 1,000. Okay. This is in 2020, right? Now, at this rate, the OECD countries are still 4 times less than India. So if they're 4 times less than India, they have a death rate of 6 per 1,000. If we go at the rate at which we are going right now, in 2047, we will be at 10 per 1,000, still lower than the OECD countries. So this is another parameter for the development of a country. So what we are saying is that at it, the infant mortality rates have been reducing for our country, but not at the rate at which it is happening for OECD countries. We were 76 per 1,000 in 1996. We came down to 27 per 1,000 in 2020. But for us, we are still 4 times more than the OECD countries, which stand at 6 per 1,000. And in 2047, going at the rate at which we are going, we are going to be 10 per 1,000. Another catch point for development. Now, after having said that, let's go to what is called the life expectancy. So, life expectancy for India, in the last decade, we have added 9 years to the lives of both male and female. So we've added 9 years to both males and females. So if we look for the period 1995 to 2020, 1995 to 2020, we are saying that we have added 9 years to the life in these past years, right? In the last 25 years. So according to this, what is going to happen in 2047 for males? All right. Now these we are all postulating depending upon the growth rates that we've got at present. We're not saying that, anything out of the blue is going to happen. But what we are talking about is the parameters at which we are growing. So if you look at life expectancy in the last 25 years, this is what we've added. We've added 9 years. And based on that, we are saying that for males, we would be increasing from 69 to 79 years in terms of life expectancy. For females, we are going to increase from 71 to 81. Whereas the OECD countries are going to be 77 to 81 in this decade and in 82 to 85 in the next 25 years. This is the male-female breakup. This is India and this is OECD. All right. So we are saying that we have added 9 years of life between 1995 to 2020. In the next 25 years, we are likely to add another 10 years of life to males and females. But even then, we will not be at par at what the OECD countries are at present and going to be in 2047. Now we talk about parity in the tertiary sector. Now, parity in tertiary sector or in tertiary education, which means that, what are the number of people who have a graduate degree in the country. So when we are going to talk about that, less than 1/3 of India's population, less than 1/3 of India's population is 1/3 of India's population is in the tertiary sector. as compared to the 77% for the OECD countries. This is at present, right? This is at present. We are saying that we have 30 colleges per 1 lakh students. That is the availability of colleges in India for graduation and post graduation. So, for tertiary education, only one third of our population is is at present involved with a graduate or a postgraduate degree. For the 77% of the OECD countries, we at present have only about 30 colleges per 1 lakh student. But again, this figure, which is a misnomer, because the number of enrollments of students between 2015 to 2020 has come down. That means less number of students are enrolling for graduate degree. This is a serious problem regarding the system of education which is existing in India. So 30 colleges per 1 lakh student in 1920 for India, and the enrollment of students is decreasing. Now let's look at the female participation rate for India and the OECD countries. So the female participation rates for India, the OECD countries at present have a female participation rate which is 2.7 times that of India. All right. And in 1996, so we have come down actually. In 1996, it was 1.6 times that of India. Now, if the females, which they do constitute more than a little 50% of the population of the country, and we are saying that they are unemployed, it speaks volumes about the employment rate of the country in general, and particularly the female force. And when we go to the Nari Shakti part, when we are going to do the Nari Shakti part, we will see that the employment rates for women has come down. In fact, when we took the class for inclusive growth, if you remember clearly, we had got into the details of why the female participation in the labor force has decreased even a little bit before COVID, but definitely after COVID. So this is again not a good statistics for the country. Now, if we look at the urbanization figures, four out of every five people in OECD countries stays in urban areas. Okay, for India, it is less than half at present. All right. So it is being said that right now we are 27%. This is just a orthodox estimation. Right now we are 27%. Urbanization later on will be 35%. The OECD countries are 75% of urban areas, and by 2047 they are likely to increase to 81%. So we have to bridge the gap of urbanization if we want to be at par with the OECD countries. Now let's go back to the World Bank and we think about what the World Bank says. So the World Bank divides the countries of the world into four brackets. World Bank divides the countries of the world into four baskets. And these baskets are based on their gross national income per capita. अभी तक हम लोग ने किस पे काम बात किया? हमने ग्रॉस डोमेस्टिक प्रोडक्ट, परचेजिंग पावर पैरिटी पे बात किया. अब वर्ल्ड बैंक कहता है कि एक और स्टैटिस्टिक्स है आपके पास जिसके हिसाब से आपकी ग्रॉस नेशनल इनकम क्या है, उसके तरीके से पर कैपिटा इनकम कंट्रीज की कैसे आती है, और हम उस हिसाब से वर्ल्ड की सारी कंट्रीज को चार बास्केट में डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. ये चार बास्केट कौन कौन सी है? द वर्ल्ड बैंक सेज that those countries which have a GNI more than $12,696. Okay, it says that those countries which have a gross national income of $12,696 and above are your high income countries. They are your high income countries. All right. Rest everything which is below this number, $12,696, are classified into the three categories. What are the three categories? The three categories are the upper middle income, the lower middle income, where we are right now, and the low income. So, in the upper middle income category, we have countries like South Korea. In the lower middle income countries, we have countries like India, Brazil, some countries of the Middle East. Low income countries would be like Ghana, like Chad, which do not know where their next meal is coming from. So this has been a United Nations definition. This is the World Bank definition based on gross national income per capita for the countries of the world, which divides the countries into four baskets. The high income ones, which is the developed countries, and then the developing countries come in these three brackets, which is the upper middle income, lower middle income, and the low income. And we are somewhere here. Then the United Nations has given us a definition. Now, this becomes important again because we've done this as a part of the other chapter, but the United Nations says that if you have to look at development, it has to be a holistic concept. So what is the holistic concept given by the UNO? The UNO talks about the Human Development Index. In the Human Development Index, the World Bank includes economic growth. It also includes health. It includes quality of
एक्सक्यूज मैम, आप अनम्यूट हो गई हैं। मैम आपका माइक बंद है।
कब म्यूट हुआ?
अभी हुआ था मैम, अब सही है।
Is it okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me know in case it gets muted again. Okay, so what I've said is that the Human Development Index, a maximum score of 1 is there. The United Nations says that if you are at 0.80, anything less than 0.80, you are an underdeveloped. They don't use the word underdeveloped anymore. You are a developing country. Anything which is above 0.80, you are a developed country. And of course, we know that Norway, Sweden, Denmark, or what are called the Nordic countries are very high on the Human Development Index. So is Germany. Again, it's very high on the UDI. We are at 0.645. And in terms of our rank, we are at 131 in the year 2021. So we are scoring miserably on the Human Development Index. But this is not just the complete story. The complete story is that we are a country of contrasts. So why is India called a country of contrast? It's called a country of contrast because normally for a country to move from developing to a developed nation, the progress is agrarian economy. All right. The agrarian economy goes into a manufacturing mode where it makes units of production from skilled but cheap labor and then goes into the service sector, which is your white collar sector or what is also called the high tertiary sector. So normally if you look at a country's growth, it's from an agrarian economy to a manufacturing economy to a service economy. What has happened to India? India has moved from an agrarian economy directly to what is called the service sector or the service economy. Now, why do you think this has happened? It has happened because the manufacturing part or the infrastructure development part has not taken place. But this does not take away from the country the fact that we have some of the world's best institutions in terms of IT, in terms of IM. We have the big corporate houses of Google, of IBM, of Pepsi being led by Indians at present. So we have a whole lot of people who have entered into classified fields, and I will go on to explain how most Indians and how India is rich in terms of quantum analysis and how much of a manpower is trained for this purpose. So while we are struggling in the agrarian economy, a part of us has moved ahead and become a part of the service sector. This speaks volumes about a country. Come at the equity market. This is the second part. If you look at the equity market in India, it is the most organized equity market of the world. Recently, we have adopted what is called the T+1 rule in equity, which is the highest level of transparency which can be attained by any country. So India is leading by example in terms of equity market. Now, these two do not gel or go along well with the fact that we have disguised unemployment where more than 50% of the population is still landing in agriculture and 90% of the entire population is in the unorganized sector, managing some very small MSMEs. So you have those very small units which are not a part of the organized sector. So 90% of our population is still engaged in that, whereas and about a 50% are still with the agriculture industry. We know that our female participation rates, which is more than 50% of our population, has dismal performances. So it speaks of a country which is moving ahead in service sector, moving ahead in equity market, all landmarks of a developed country, but at the same time, the mass population is still in the unorganized sector. Now, if you look at the progression of China, China moved from an agrarian economy to a manufacturing country, and now, of course, is providing skilled service sector to the world at large. And according to the to what the economists have to say, another country which is following the path of China as on date is Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is going the Chinese way and India is going the Indian way. So if we are going by this standard, we are also saying that the literacy in the country is at 77%. Well, for the world at large and developed countries, it's about 85%, which means the literacy rates for a country are very, very low. If we look at the poverty index, then on the global and this is an important index, the global multi-dimensional index. India scores at 66 out of 109 countries. Though in absolute terms, it says that only about 10% of the population is below the poverty line, and that we have made huge strides in trying to control hunger in the country. And we have done the hunger index. We will do it again. But as of now, the the absolute numbers of people who go hungry in a day is large. In fact, the economists go on to say that uh, more than 800 million people have been brought up, and this is a figure which is quoted in the article. 800 million people moved above the poverty line, but that is all attributed to the upcoming economy of China, which had the poorest of poor. But 800 million people have come above the poverty line, and therefore the poverty statistics for the world as a whole has come up. In 2020, if you recall, then President Trump took out India and China from the list of the developing countries. It said that because of these two parameters, which I've just quoted, India and China are no longer eligible for protective tariffs as regarding 2,000 items. So Trump in 2020 took out India and China, and because it was taking out China, it had to take out India also. It said for 2,000 items which are being imported by America, the protective tariffs which is being given to these items is no longer valid because both China and India do not qualify in what is called as a developing country bracket. So this part I needed to add to you. Now, if we look at the urban growth of urban India, if you look at the growth of urban India, it's said that between 1970 to 2018, we added from 109 million, we went up to 460 million in urban areas. All right. It also postulates, and this is by the Niti Aayog. The Niti Aayog says that in the next 25 years, we are going to be adding some 416 million people in urban areas. Now, you do understand how much of pressure is going to be with the city development, municipal corporations, which has to look into three factors of housing, of sewage management, as well as the transport of these people. So you see this massive metro development is keeping in mind that in the next 25 years, 416 million people are going to be added to the urban areas. At present, 26% of urban India lives in slums. At present, 26% of urban India lives in slums. For cities like Mumbai, more than half the population lives in slums. So keep this in mind. It is being postulated by the Niti Aayog that the country will have to spend about 870 billion to 1.2 trillion, and this is in dollars, to make cities habitable for the increased influx of people from the agriculture or from the village areas to the urban areas. So the Niti Aayog says that we are going to be spending about $810 billion to $1.2 trillion just to make the cities habitable in terms of housing, in terms of transportation, and in terms of sewage management. But if we are going to be, it is being said in this article, and it is important that if we have to come up, then we need to break out of this lower middle income countries, as has happened in the case of Middle East countries and Brazil and Mexico, which has so far not been able to come out of it. So we need to make all efforts to do so. If we are able to break out of the bracket, then perhaps we can aspire to become a developed country of the world. So in this context, the Prime Minister has to say is that we have to focus on the Panch Pran. And what is the Panch Pran? That was quote unquote Sri Shankar. And this is quote unquote what the Prime Minister has said on the Panch Pran. First is moving forward with bigger resolve and a resolve to develop India. It's a moving forward. The first is moving forward with a bigger resolve and a resolve to develop India. Second is erasing all traces of servitude. Third is being proud of our legacy. Fourth is focusing on our strength of unity. Focusing on our strength of unity. And fifth is fulfilling the duties of the citizens with honesty. Fulfilling the duties of citizens with honesty. And this is applicable to both the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers of the state. So then they go on to say that we need to move from cooperative federalism to what is called competitive federalism. And this has been emphasized by the Prime Minister in his speech time and again. He says, okay, cooperative federalism is good, yes, but at the same time, we need competitive federalism, and we are going to talk about it a little later. Now, let us look at what the Prime Minister needs to say when he talks about an Aatmnirbhar Bharat. So the Aatmnirbhar Bharat talks about making the country self-sufficient by whatever means it can. Now, if you look, the government has made policies which are protectionist in their attitude, in the sense that they are deliberately trying to encourage what is indigenously made. To serve this purpose, they are trying to put big custom duties on whatever is being imported. So earlier what was happening is that India was importing, adding value to it and exporting. Now the country's lookout is that you put on the custom duties, which had earlier been taken away. So the import becomes very expensive. But if it becomes expensive, our input part with which we were value adding, the exports also become expensive. So the balance of trade will get upset. This please keep in mind, because the country's policy will change, but right now it is like this. At the same time, the government has also listed what is called the PIL, or what is called production linked incentives. Now, in production linked incentives, which has gone to the renewable industry, it's gone to the sunrise industries, it's also been put into textiles, it's been put into IT sector. So, for example, we are now manufacturing mobiles, not only Oppo, but Apple also. So what the country's lookout is, or what the government's lookout is, that for every additional amount of production that you made, you are going to get a subsidy on that. So instead of encouraging subsidy per se, the government wants to link it to production. I think that that's a good step, and it should benefit the sectors, but we will come to know about it since the balance of payments and balance of trade is looking a little shaky at present. We will have to wait and see how time progresses and how we are going to progress on these lines. Now, the Prime Minister went on to say that we have become, after Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, the Indians committed themselves that they will not go hungry and that they will become sufficient in food grains production, which happened after the Green Revolution. And we became self-sufficient, not only with the context of wheat and rice, but also in areas of fruits, vegetable, and milk. Now, this is a sector where we are self-sufficient. However, there are two areas of major concern which form a major chunk of import for the country. One is oilseed production and the other is pulses. The government has been giving subsidy to the farmers And if you recall, the entire subsidy bill, which was challenged by the farmers and the country and the government for the first time, retracted or took back the farmers' bill. One of the biggest thing was not to provide subsidy for wheat and rice, which, to my knowledge or to my understanding, was a positive step. Since we are self-sufficient in both the grains, we do not need further production in it. So the government is trying to give you more subsidy for the production of pulses, chana, dal, soya bean, for oilseeds production also, so that the acreage under production of these agriculture products increases. But so far, the results have not been very promising. So we are going to go into the details of how this is working. The first and foremost thing is that the imports for pulses and oilseeds, for pulses and oilseeds, at present stand at 1 lakh crore for the country. This is the amount India is paying for importing pulses and oilseeds, particularly oilseeds. Now, if you look at the water stressed states of Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, which is in a big way involved in production of crops, especially rice and wheat, the government has been trying to increase the subsidy to the farmers so that they shift to what is called the pulses and oilseeds, but this has not yielded the result. And the acreage under these crops has not shown a significant increase. So for the period 14-15 to what is called 2021, the MSP for rice has increased by some 37%, but acreage has reduced by only 2.5% for the country. All right. So we are talking of the minimum support price, which is being provided for rice, has increased in this period from 14 to 15 to 2021 by 37%. So please take off your blinkers for whatever the farmers had to say that they are being denied an MSP increase. So look at the statistics, they speak for itself. 37% increase in subsidy for rice. The acreage has only reduced by 2.5%. Okay, this is the acreage which is reduced for rice. Now, if you look at wheat for the same period, there is a 10% increase in wheat cultivation, despite the government asking not to grow more wheat. There's a 10% increase in wheat acres. All right. And the subsidy part has increased by 36.2%. All right. Now, if we go to chana or grams, okay, chana ka subsidy kitna bada hai? 61% MSP आपका चने में बढ़ाया गया है, but आपका जो area under acreage है, वो सिर्फ which is only 36%. So you see, the MSP which is being given in terms of percentages is not corresponding for the acreage increase. In other words, the government is losing money by giving MSPs, but is not getting the resultant production from the farmers. So there is a vested interest of the farmers of the regions to go in for rice and wheat production, bringing down the water table for the areas and overproducing crops which we don't need. So आपने चना में 61% MSP दिया, पर आपने एकड़ कितना बढ़ाया? खाली 36%. Now come to soyabean. सोयाबीन में आपने अपना MSP बढ़ाया 51.5%. In terms of acres, 10% only increase in acres. So people are not interested to work for the country and bring down this 1 lakh crore that we are putting in at present for importing oilseeds and pulses. Now, another area in which the country has done really well, and why the Prime Minister brings in the contrast between the two, is because in the case of this commodity, we are doing so well. And he says, so why can't we do it in the area of food production? it is only a mindset of the Indians, or it is a mindset of citizens who have to aspire for self-sufficiency. So he says, yes, I'm not going to the Swadeshi of the time when the British were here, but I'm going for a Swadeshi for a development or for self-development of the country as a whole. So he says, in toy imports, a place where we have done very well, and where the children themselves are saying they are not going to play with imported toys. The Prime Minister says that the toy imports are down by 39%. So he says that we have done well in the area of toy imports, brought down the imports by 39%. And in 1819, we were spending about 645.63 million rupees in toys. In 21-22, we have brought it down by 39%, and we are now spending only 392.92 million. The Prime Minister wants to impress on the citizens of the country to understand that a small sector like toy can save so much of import for the country. We can bring it down by 39%. Why can't we do the same in the area of food production? That is what the Prime Minister wants to say. He also wants to tell you that because we are self-sufficient in grains, which means wheat and rice, we are self-sufficient in milk, we are self-sufficient in vegetables and fruits, we can be self-sufficient in pulses and oil seeds also. And adding to this, the Prime Minister says that the export for toys of India have gone up. And he says that there has been a 31% increase in toys for export from 417.32 million to 545.97 million. And this, he says, is for the period 18 to 19, and this is for 21-22. So kids, I'm giving you figures which are like last up to July. So you are totally updated. Even when you write your exams, if you get the figures and you quote the same figures, you will have no problems, because these are authentic figures which have been taken from the Niti Aayog's leaflet. There can be nothing more authentic than this. So this is what the Prime Minister is saying. We've increased our exports by 35%, decreased our exports by 39% for toys, saved so many millions of rupees, and gained so many millions by exporting. So this is what an Aatmnirbhar Bharat should be all about. Now he goes on to talk about the energy sector. Today I quoted you the bus which is being hydrogen powered, run in Pune. Important thing, just you have a look at it. So sometimes you get it at the back of your mind, because the minister for the energy sector has gone to inaugurate and given a tweet about it. You should read about it and keep yourself apprised. Now, the Prime Minister goes on to say that we have to be ready for renewables. All right. Last time I was telling you that we are going to take a class on climate change. Now, this became more than climate change. And because it was relevant at present, I jumped the topic and took it for now. We will be doing climate change, but this has also got to do a lot with climate change. Like, we have to deal with renewables. So the Prime Minister says we are fifth in terms of wind power, we are fifth in terms of solar power. So what is it that, and fifth overall in terms of renewables for the country, but we are still not self-sufficient in renewables as on date. And there is a stagnation in the sector, which is worrying the leader of the country. So he says that, we have got what is called the solar, the wind, the green hydrogen. और ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन अगर आपकी बार आपके मेंस में नहीं आया तो आप बहुत लकी हैं, क्योंकि ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन आपको आना ही आना है. And then of course he talks about biofuel and he talks about electric vehicles. All right, all these he says. Then it is emphasized that by ethanol blending. Now again, the attack is what we lose in terms of exchequer when we import. So another very draining part of our economy is the amount of money we spend on crude oil imports. and on petroleum imports. So we talk about ethanol blending, and the ethanol blending targets have been achieved 5 months in advance in the month of June itself. So we set a target for ethanol blending, and in June 2022, 5 months ahead of our target, we have already achieved. Now, ethanol blending with petrol helps us to save petrol in terms of the imports that we take. So, India has substituted 2 million tons. I repeat, 2 million tons of crude oil by ethanol blending, which was a mere zero point 0.3 million tons in 1340. And as of now, we are saying that we have reached our target of 10.16% in terms of ethanol blending in petrol, right? So in 1314, we were at 0.3 million tons. We are now at 10.16% in terms of ethanol blending of petrol. What is our target for 2025? We are saying that we are going to reach 20.1% of ethanol blending with petrol, and this is going to save us 4 billion. It's going to save us $4 billion in imports. And because we are talking about imports, we're going to talk about dollars. So India saves $4 billion just by mixing 20% of ethanol with petrol at the time of usage. So the Prime Minister says that from 1314, where we were using only about 0.3 million tons, we have gone to 10.16% in June 2022. And by 2025, we have a target of 20.1%. And I am very hopeful we are going to be achieving this target way before 2025 and save $4 billion out of that. Again, another target for 2030 is 5% mixing of biofuel with diesel. Again, an attack to save the foreign exchequer that we spend on diesel imports. So in 2022, our petroleum imports were around 23.2%. If you look at the commodity, only one commodity is costing us imports about 23.2%. So the Prime Minister is of the opinion that if we can overcome this part, we would be very well placed in terms of our import-export proportions. To move forward by this, we will go on to what is called the wind energy. Now, if you remember when we were doing renewables, I told you that in wind energy, we're actually exporting equipment. Then what is the drawback? At present, this industry is stagnating. Reason being, we are not doing the amount of capacity building we should. Now, why are we not doing capacity building? Is because the marketing of this product is not helpful to the business community. So the amount of investments are huge, the returns are not equitable because renewables, the per unit cost of renewals is much lower than what is coming from thermal sources. So this part the government needs to look at if we want to grow further in renewables. Now for solar power, we have grown by 2000% in the last decade. All right. But again, a catch for here is that for solar energy, production requires inputs which are only being imported from abroad. So despite the government putting restrictions, despite increasing the custom duty, without imports, this sector is not becoming self-sufficient. So they quoted that then the solar cells, for solar cells, which the biggest imports are from China, and they are saying that this import is of in 21-22, this increased by almost 101%. This is 101%. Its import, the import of solar cells increased by 101%. Reason for it was the custom duty for the solar cells was reduced. और एकदम से 101% आपने 21-22 में number of solar cells import किए, which is from China. Now this is what the country doesn't want, because one, we become dependent on a country which is not so favorable to us in terms of imports and exports. And at the same time, the country is emphasizing on an Aatmnirbhar Bharat. So with this 101% increase in terms of solar cells and lithium ions is something which the country wants to put a stop gap on. But at present, we have not been able to circumvent its use in solar production. So this is another cause of concern. So we spent about 8,984 crore rupees on lithium and lithium ions in the year 21, and this increased to 13,838 crores in 2022. So the concern for the government is huge. So what are we saying is that we need to curtail our dependency on solar cells from another country, manufacture it ourselves, and for lithium and lithium ions dependency, we need to again cut down and bring down its usage by means of technology or by some substitute. At present, two countries which are giving us both these items are China and Hong Kong. Again, Hong Kong is a part of China only. The country goes on to emphasize the use of electric vehicles for mobility by 2030 and wants its usage to increase by almost 50%. But again, the electric vehicle whole concept is very import dependent. So this is a way forward that we need to look at. Now, why is it that the country feels that, concepts like green hydrogen should have 100% FDI investment? Because it wants to attract people to go and invest in the sector. So if green hydrogen moves forward, so does renewable energy for India. If you look in terms of thermal power, India is the second largest miner for coal. And 90% of our thermal requirements are being met by the country. But that 10% is again causing a huge drain for the country. And coal imports are something which the country is not in favor of at present. Now, when we go into what was called the Jai Anusandhan, I'm not recapitulating for you because I feel that we have to cover a lot of area, and I think that the notes are sufficiently clear, and so am I. I'm not moving very fast, but sufficiently so that you understand the tempo for the country also. This is the tempo which needs to be maintained if we want to move from a developing country to a developed one. So the Prime Minister says that Jai Anusandhan meaning innovations, are very important for the country, just like Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan of Lal Bahadur Shastri and Jai Vigyan of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So what is Jai Anusandhan and where can we see its play importantly at present? So if we want to see Jai Anusandhan, the biggest sector, which in my opinion, and which is quoted in the newspaper also, is the Ministry of Defense. अब मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है क्योंकि ये एक एरिया है जहां पे गवर्नमेंट ने एक तो वी हैव सक्सीडेड वेल एंड वी हैव पुट आवर बेस्ट फीट फॉरवर्ड. सो इफ वी लुक एट द मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस, व्हाट हैज इट डन? This reply, which I'm quoting here, has been taken from an answer which the Minister of State for Defense tabled in the Parliament on the 29th of July 2022. And the minister goes on to say that for the country as a whole, we are now what is called we are into what is called the IDEX scheme. So what is this IDEX scheme? IDEX. This I'm talking in context of the Anusandha. The IDEX scheme is innovations for defense excellence. IDEX, innovations for defense excellence. This is something which the country embarked on in 2018, but it is giving its fruits now. So this becomes, in my opinion, it is very, very important. Uh, for you, if you want to, if you think that you want to skip this part, you can. But I would say that if whenever you're going to write about Aatmnirbhar Bharat, whenever you're going to write about MSMEs, or about the social change which is taking place in the country, all these concepts are very, very important for you. So the article goes on to say, or the Minister of State for Defense says that SMMEs, MSMEs, okay, which are your micro, small, and medium enterprises, submitted blueprints for innovative projects. I told you it was launched in 2018, and this technological innovation was given a platform by the Ministry of Defense in the areas of defense and aerospace technology. So IDEX is working in the area of defense and aerospace. All right? आपने यहाँ क्या बोला? आपने ये बोला कि टू इंकरेज अनुसंधान, आपने एमएसएमईज को एक प्लेटफॉर्म प्रोवाइड करने की कोशिश करी है 2018 से, ताकि वो छोटे छोटे इनोवेशन द्वारा हमारी जो इंपोर्ट की स्थिति है उससे हमको थोड़ा सा रिलीफ मिल सके. और ये इनोवेशंस हमारे लिए टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट है किस एरियाज में? डिफेंस के एरिया में और एरोस्पेस के एरिया में. तो ये जो टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसेस हैं वो किस एरिया में आए हैं? दे आर कमिंग इन द एरियाज ऑफ चैलेंजेस which are being faced by the Ministry of Defense. Most of the innovations are in the areas of challenges which is being faced by the Ministry of Defense. For Jai Anusandhan, Ministry of Defense launched what is called the IDEX in 2018, which is bearing fruit now. Under the IDEX, the Ministry of Defense has provided MSMEs, micro, small production units, to come out with blueprints that encourage innovations for the challenges being faced in the areas of defense and aerospace. And having given them these platforms, the country saves precious foreign exchequer. Now, the 100th contract in this area has been awarded to what is called the Pacify Medical Technology. ये उस कंसर्न का नाम है जिसको 100 कॉन्ट्रैक्ट मिला है अंडर द आईडेक्स स्कीम. और अगर आप देखिए तो इसकी वजह से जो हमारा एक्सपेंडिचर ऑन डिफेंस है, एक्सपेंडिचर ऑन डिफेंस has reduced from 46% to about 36%. This is for the period 18-19 to 21-22. All right? तो हम ये कह रहे हैं कि 46% हमारा जो एक्सपेंडिचर हुआ करता था 18-19 में, उसके संदर्भ में हम अब 36% एक्सपेंडिचर ही कर रहे हैं अपने इन डिफेंस इनपुट्स पर. Now, IDEX is funded and managed by what is called managed by the Defense Innovation Organization. All right. Now, this is a registered It is a registered company under Section 8 of the Companies Act, and it is registered as a company not for profit. This is important. All right. IDEX की फंडिंग कहाँ से हो रही है? अगर आप देखो तो what has the government tried to do? Whether it is ONGC, whether it is the solar commission, whether it is BHEL or the Indian Oil Corporation, all these public sector undertakings have been asked to make a company which goes into funding of other projects, mostly in areas of innovation. This is just to encourage new ideas, to encourage research in the country, to come up with research and development of areas which have been neglected by the country so far. So, from an import dependent country, the efforts of the government are we not only become self sufficient, but we also become export oriented at the same time. तो इस एरिया में मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस के एक हिस्से ने जो आईडेक्स को सपोर्ट करता है उसका डिफेंस इनोवेशन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को रजिस्टर किया अंडर द कंपनीज एक्ट सेक्शन 8 as a not for profit company. Not for profit company. अब इसके फाउंडर मेंबर्स कौन है? इसके फाउंडर मेंबर्स DFUS है. So there are two founder members of this company. One is called the Hindustan Aeronautics. Hindustan Aeronautics. And the second is called Bharat Electronics. Second is called Bharat Electronics. ये दोनों पब्लिक सेक्टर अंडरटेकिंग है जो अभी तक मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ डिफेंस को टेक्नोलॉजिकल इनपुट्स प्रोवाइड करते थे और अभी भी करते हैं और ये फंडिंग प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं आईडेक्स की टेक्नोलॉजी को या जो भी इनोवेशंस वहां पर है. नाउ इन major defense platforms for these industries have been given, and if we look at the last year MOD ने ये दोनों को 3 लिस्ट प्रोवाइड करी थी. 3 lists had been provided. Out of these 3 Hello? Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Did I go mute for some time?
Yes, ma'am.
But why didn't you tell me then? How long?
Ma'am, network issue.
Is it fine now?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, right. Now, so we are saying that in the for the defense public sector undertakings, Hindustan Aeronautics and Bharat Electronics are the 2 big public sector undertakings which are funding the IDEX idea. And last year, the Ministry of Defense gave them 3 lists, which included some 310 defense products and also 2,958 items, which the government said, or which the Ministry of Defense said, would have trade embargoes or which could not be imported. And if they were imported, then a huge amount of duty would be imposed on them. So it had to be a deliberate attempt by these 2 public sector undertakings to work in areas of innovation so that they could be substituted by Indian products. So 310 defense products and about 2,958 items for DFSUs. Okay, so this is the list which is given to these two public sector undertakings and with this kind of a concept. So this is what is called now Jai Anusandhan in the defense sector. The Prime Minister goes on to say that we have made huge progress in what is called the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. और जो स्वच्छ भारत अभियान हमने 150 years बर्थ सेंचुरी 2 अक्टूबर 2019 को स्टार्ट किया था, वो 2022 में बहुत ज्यादा सक्सेसफुल हुआ है और सबका साथ सबका विकास का स्लोगन हैज नाउ चेंज्ड. सबका साथ सबका विकास का स्लोगन अभी क्या हो गया है? सबका विश्वास सबका प्रयास. Now that is the slogan in 2022. In 2022, the slogan becomes Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas. Right? If you look at the expenditure which has gone in the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, this is being managed by the Ministry of Jal Shakti. और मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ जल शक्ति कह रही है कि वो फेज 2 में आ चुका है और जो उसका पहला फेज था टू कंट्रोल ओपन डेफिकेशन और व्हाट इज कॉल्ड दी ODF, जो उसका ओपन डेफिकेशन का टारगेट था, इट हैज बीन मेट एंड नाउ स्वच्छ भारत ग्रामीण फेज 2 इज इन प्रोग्रेस. आई रिपीट, स्वच्छ भारत ग्रामीण मिशन इज बीइंग इम्प्लीमेंटेड इन फेज 2. Earlier in 2019, when we started off with Swachh Bharat, we had an 16,941.96 crore expenditure on Swachh Bharat. 16,941.96 crores expenditure, which in the current year is being brought down to 311.36 crores in 21-22. Now, the need to reduce the expenditure is also because a lot of work has gone into making the country free from open defecation, and this can be seen. Now, if you look at the Prime Minister's mission, the Prime Minister had said that it will provide toilets in every school and that girls will have separate toilets. The Ministry of Jal Shakti had a target for open defecation in phase 1, which is completed. It has now gone in phase 2. So in terms of Prime Minister, we have been doing a good job with the Swachh Bharat mission. He said that we need to become self-sufficient in the areas of production of semiconductors and 5G optical network. And this is going to be a part of India's tech aid. India's tech aid. All right. He says that the 5G technology in terms of optic fiber is going to bring in the next revolution for the IT industry for India. At present, India leads the world. And I want to repeat, India leads the world in UPI payments. And what is UPI? UPI is your unified payment interface. So what started in 2019 gained grounds during the COVID period, and because of the positive intervention of the government and the development of the IT sector, lead taken by the RBI, at present, India is the country with the highest number of live transactions so far as UPI is concerned. So if we look at an index which has been made by the RBI, it was launched in January 2021. Just to give you an idea, this is called what is called the Digital Payment Index. The Digital Payment Index. अब Digital Payment Index की अब growth देखिए. Digital Payment Index in March 19. This was announced in 2021, but उसकी पहले उसके index को workout किया गया है. In March 19, it was 153.47. Okay. Then in September 21, it became what is called 304.06. And in March 2022, when we closed the financial year, it became 349.30. तो ये एनएफटी की आप जैसे देखते हैं स्टॉक ट्रेड में होता है कि इंडेक्स राइज एंड फॉल करता है. We have only registered a rise in what is called the digital payment index, or what is called the DPI. So India is moving towards a 5G optical fiber network, which is going to bring about a revolution, particularly in the villages. But at the same time, we are the country with the highest number of UPI payments, live transactions in a day for any country of the world. And the RBI quotes that we are clocking about 6.28 billion transactions, 6.28 billion transactions, amounting to 10.62 trillion in July 2022. तो हमारे की ट्रांजैक्शन कितने हुए? 6.28 बिलियन ट्रांजैक्शन हुए. उससे हमें पैसा कितना मिला है? 10.6 ट्रिलियन इन जुलाई 2022. इतने अमाउंट का पैसा हम सिर्फ यूपीआई से कर रहे हैं, विच इज बिगेस्ट थिंग. तो यूपीआई भीम जो है हमारा ऐप, जो यूपीआई भीम हमारा 40% ऑफ द रियल टाइम ट्रांजैक्शन के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल है at present, which is a big revolution for the country. And the Prime Minister feels very positive and proud of this setup. Now we go on to what is called innovations, which are being propagated by the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. We are talking about innovations now from another department, which is the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. अब ये क्या कह रहा है? ये स्टार्टअप मूवमेंट इंडिया का लॉन्च करता है. This department has launched the startup movement for India. इसमें आपने रेलवेज का one station one product का कॉन्सेप्ट सुना होगा, which is going to be launched in the month of October, where they are saying they're going to provide outlets to at least at 5,000 railway stations, where people will be selling their indigenous products. So it is meant to be an Antyodaya scheme for the poorest of the poor, for the artisans who are losing their skill. So that OSOP is also a startup movement for India. Now, this startup movement has covered 80% of the districts of the country. So under the Ministry for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, the Startup Movement for India has been launched again in 2018. And till date, 80% of the districts in India have been covered. The Niti Aayog claims that 4 lakh entrepreneurs have been born in the country from the Indian villages till date under the scheme, under the startup scheme. 4 lakh entrepreneurs have risen from the Indian villages till date under the scheme. So far as what is considered to be competitive federalism, the Niti Aayog has come up with certain indexes to judge states which do well on certain parameters that makes them as innovative states or best performer states. So we will need to have a look at those parameters. Competitive federalism according to the Niti Aayog. तो नीति आयोग आपसे क्या कहता है? नीति आयोग कह रहा है कि जो पैरामीटर सेट कर रहा है to assess a state on how well it is performing. One is the school education. This is, in my opinion, important. The school education quality index. The prime minister is of the opinion that, okay, cooperative federalism is good, but a competitive federalism is required so that the best innovations of a state can be readily substituted or imported to another state. Moreover, when there is competition, each state would like to do better than the other on these parameters, which according to the Niti Aayog are important to make the country progress. So what is the first parameter? School Education Quality Index. The second is the State Health Index. The third is your Sustainable Development Goals Index. आप देखिए हम लोगों ने इसको कितने पहले अपने आंसर्स में सब्स्टिट्यूट करने के लिए कह दिया था. Sustainable Development Goal Index. Then it talks about the India Innovation Index. India Innovation Index. Please copy the indexes. Your prelim question can be which of these are not an index for assessment by Niti Aayog, and for your main question, I have this feeling that this question is going to come. In which form, I really don't know, but it will figure very soon. So India's Innovation Index, then the finally what is called the Export
Ma'am, the video is paused again.